Shabbat Shalom. I'm Cantor David Prozer of Kempsville Conservative Synagogue, Kehillat Bet HaMidrash in Virginia Beach. And this is our Torah portion for the Shabbat of Saturday, May 22nd, 2021, corresponding to the 11th day of the Hebrew month of Sivan in the year 5781. We thank Rabbi Joseph Prauser, Rabbi Adam Rosenbaum, and the United Synagogue Torah Spark series for their various teachings and publications on this week's Parsha. This Shabbat, May 22nd, we read the Parsha of Naso, the second Parsha in the book of Bamidbar, the book of Numbers. It begins on page 791 of the Eitz Chaim Chumash and page 586 of the Hertz. Parshat Naso is the longest portion in the Torah, 176 verses. The Israelites continue their final preparations to leave Sinai as the census and accounting of the tribe of Levi continues. The Levitical clan of Gershon is commanded to watch over the tabernacle curtains, and the clan of Merari is made responsible for the structure. God instructs Moshe that the ritual purity of the camp is to be maintained by removal of those who contract impurity, as by bodily eruption or by contact with a corpse. The moral purity of the Israelite camp is also addressed, and a process for redressing personal offenses is prescribed, including confession, restitution, and a ritual offering. A person who has wronged another by theft must confess his or her sins, make restitution with a 20% fine added, and bring an offering to complete his or her atonement. The Parsha continues with the ritual for the Sotah, the suspected adulteress. In the absence of actual proof or substantive evidence, a married woman suspected of adultery by her husband is subjected to a trial by ordeal and compelled to drink bitter waters, in which the dust from the sanctuary floor and scrapings from a parchment on which a series of curses recited by the priest during the ordeal has been inscribed and mixed. An offering of jealousy consisting of barley flour is presented at the altar. The ritual instructions provide that a woman guilty of unfaithlessness will have dire bodily reactions to the potion, while an innocent wife will be unharmed. The extensive passage dealing with the Sotah and the unseemly specter of marital faithlessness is followed immediately by a very different ritual, the vow of the Nazarite, an expression of extraordinary faith and devotion to God. An Israelite man or woman may temporarily undertake a heightened state of personal consecration through a vow of self-denial, refraining from wine and other intoxicants, as well as other grape products. The Nazarite is to avoid impurity contracted through contact with a corpse, even in order to attend to the burial or mourning of a family member. Finally, the Nazarite's hair is consecrated and must not be cut. Scripture's ambivalence about the ascetic nature of the Nazarite is reflected in the sin offering, which is brought to mark the conclusion of the devotee's term of consecration, suggesting that the associated self-denial is sinful in its own right, even though it was carried out with holy intent. The priestly blessing is prescribed as a primary duty of the Kohanim, the priests. The blessing is famous for its beauty as well as its intricate poetic structure. The 3 verses address 6 divine acts of favor: blessing, protection, shining, graciousness, divine attention, and the bestowing of peace. The Parsha continues with a lengthy and repetitive listing of the dedication gifts brought by the prince of each tribe at the consecration of the Mishkan, the portable sanctuary in the wilderness. Chapter 7 describes these gifts in 89 verses, but mostly from 12 near identical blocks. Each block records the same gift for the tabernacle, brought by each of the 12 chieftains of each tribe over the course of 12 days. The Torah recounts each gift with elaborate, repetitive precision. The equal status of the respective tribes and their chieftains in the inauguration ceremony is meant to overcome any resentment or rivalries among them. This section has been selected as the Torah reading for the 8 days of Hanukkah. The Parsha concludes with a description of God's ongoing communication with Moshe, the divine voice emanating from between the two cherubim atop the cover of the ark. The Haftorah for this Shabbat is from the book of Judges, verses 2 to 25, found beginning on page 813 of the Eitz Chaim Chumash and page 602 of the Hertz. I would add a personal note about this being the first Haftorah that I learned because it was my bar mitzvah portion. But in actuality, I was in a bar mitzvah class where I had to listen to all of the Bechorim before me recite their Haftorah portions before it was my turn to recite the one I was going to say. Consequently, the very first Haftorah that I learned was Machar Chodesh, the portion recited when Rosh Chodesh falls on Sunday, the day after the Shabbat on which it was recited, as it did back in May of. The reason why this Haftorah was chosen is because part of today's Torah reading recounts a religious institution known as Nazirut. The unusual religious status requires its adherents, who become Nazirites through a vow, to refrain from wine and grape products, to refrain from impurity, and to not cut his or her hair, usually for a period of 1 month. The Haftorah relates the story of the birth of one of the most famous biblical heroes of all, the miraculously strong Samson. His birth and life also involved Nazirut. An angel of God appears to Samson's mother, who is barren, and tells her that she will bear a son. She is also told not to drink wine or other intoxicants, or to eat anything unclean, and to let no razor touch her son's head, because he is destined to be a Nazirite to God. In contrast to today's Torah reading, we see that Nazirut in the Samson story differs from that described in the Torah, in that it was Samson's mother who was commanded not to drink strong drinks and to refrain from impurity. Abstention from these things did not apply to her son, except for the part about let no razor touch his head. The Haftorah goes on to describe the woman's relating this event to her husband, Manoach, to their meeting the angel of God who repeats and confirms the prophecy and the restrictions, and concludes with the birth of Samson. Shabbat Shalom, good Shabbos. Thank you for watching. Please be sure to subscribe, to like, to hit the notification bell so you always know when we post new content, and feel free to leave comments below. Thank you again for watching. Shabbat Shalom.